Hi there, hello, and welcome to another episode of my Thursday reads. I have been doing several so far and I've really thoroughly enjoyed them. I've been sharing extracts from my novels and from my novella over the last few weeks during confinement, as we say in France. And it's made a nice change to my Thursdays so far. Now I want to share with you an excerpt from Highland Arms, which was my first ever published novel with an American press originally nearly 10 years ago. And then I got the rights back. I added a cover that was very similar to my first published one. Very much historical romance, Scottish romance type, and then later changed it to this one, which I think is a wee bit more appropriate. Anyway, Highland Arms is the first in my Highland Chronicles series. Currently there are two novels, Highland Arms and Highland Captive, both standalone independent novels set in different eras and different places across Scotland. So for now, I'm going to dive in right into chapter 1 of Highland Arms, and I hope you'll enjoy. Scottish Highlands, spring 1720. Angus, do stop whining. It's entirely your fault we're here. Katrina Mackenzie turned to glare at her brother riding a few yards behind her. Well, it is hellish, he insisted, his expression solemn. A huge inconvenience. The wind is chilling, and my clothes are soaked from constant drizzle. And never mind the midges, wretched things, he added, slapping his wrist to rid himself of a biting menace. His gaze met hers in a bone-chilling stare. And before you forget, dear sister, if you hadn't dallied with John that night, we wouldn't be here. You know I did not dally with John. He tried to... Katrina turned away from him, fighting off her tears. It was pointless trying to reason with Angus. She let her gaze roam the mountain sides of Glencoe, rising high on either side of her. The peaks were hidden from sight, shrouded in low cloud. A shiver of foreboding ran down her spine. If only Angus had not told father. She stared ahead at the broad back of Robbie McKinnon, the gruff guide her father had hired to take her to her godmother, Lady Margaret Cameron MacDonald. He was clad in thick plaid with shabby kilt that had seen better days, and brogues with thick bag socks. Despite his advanced age, he must at least be as old as father. He seemed completely unfazed by the icy gust that tore at the shredded fabrics. A stench of stable wafted around him. Not surprising, the midges avoided him. The small group was on the move from daybreak to sunset, the pace relentless, ever since they left Edinburgh a week earlier. Grinding her teeth to stop them from chattering, Katrina pulled the fur-trimmed cloak tighter around her neck for a little extra warmth. She should be snug at home, not in this wilderness, scratching her insect-ravaged skin. Right. The next scene is in a place which is now called the Clachagin in Glencoe, not far from the village. It was a drover's inn back in those days, so it existed, although I'm sure it's changed slightly. It would have still been there for customers, for travellers to stop off, to warm themselves up, or to stay the night. That's where Katrina meets someone else. Katrina's mind whirled as she let her gaze wander further across his ruggedly handsome features. His open face, with strong cheekbones and wide-set eyes, spoke of power, a forceful character. Dark blonde hair, glowing in the light of the tallow candles, was tied back at the nape of his neck. Most certainly he was not a drover. But why was he sharing the whisky? He piqued her curiosity, and in the absence of any other form of entertainment in the spare inn, she found herself fascinated. When he glanced up from his cup, their eyes met. They held for a moment that stretched like eternity. His, a vibrant green that sparkled across the smoky room, mocked her apparent interest. Caught in the act, she blushed and quickly busied herself adjusting the folds of her dress before extending her hands to the fire, thereby turning her back to the room. How obvious her scrutiny had been, her cheeks flamed, and not just from the heat of the fire. Well, she had her first glimpse of Rory. We're in chapter 2, from Rory Cameron's point of view. Rory Cameron stretched after he bid the drovers good night, or rather good morning given the time of day, and emptied his cup with one gulp. The fire of the Ushkabear had long since evaporated, yet the smooth liquid running down his throat still warmed him. He needed all the warmth he could get. Crossing the pass before sunrise would be no easy feat, yet it was the only way. He withdrew several coins from the pouch tied to his belt and threw them on the table in payment for the drink consumed all night. Again, the drovers had pledged their support for the course. They had managed to sell all the cattle, even those bulls they had lifted, or borrowed, as he called it, from the Duke of Argyle's estate to the south. He grinned at the memory of the money those bulls made him, even after he deducted the drovers' extortionate but well-earned share. Argyle, the Jacobites' most powerful enemy, raged, but Rory was certain no trace led back to him. He chuckled as he wrapped his plate tight around him and fastened it securely against the harsh winds outside. A chilly breeze hit him when he opened the door to the yard. With a heavy sigh, he left the heat of the inn and headed for the stables. All was quiet around him, apart from the odd howl of a lone wolf in the distance. At leisure, he saddled his horse and led it outside. To his relief, the skies had cleared. The soft rays of the early morning sun crept over the hilltops, like fingers stretching out across the expanse. As he sat up, his gaze fell onto a small window under the gables. That window belonged to the ladies' chamber. He had enjoyed the cosy room on several occasions in female company. A vision of the lady present who presently occupied the chamber swam before his eyes. Katrina. Despite her dowdy exterior, Rory was in no doubt she was a lady. Her whole demeanour exuded breeding. Poor lass, to be burnt with such a pompous fool for a brother. But where were they headed? What was she doing out here? We'll let him wander for a bit longer, shall we? Chapter 3. What are you doing here? Her voice croaked and her clammy fingers fidgeted with the curtain tassels. He remained silent, staring at her, the storm in his eyes relentless. Her throat constricted in shock, she only managed to whisper, "I'm so sorry, how rude of me. I'm Katrina Mackenzie from Edinburgh." Why was she so nervous? After all, this was not their first encounter. But who was Rory Cameron that he wandered freely around Auntie Meg's house? As if he lived here. "I know who you are." No, the tone of his voice had none of the humour he'd shown at the inn, none of the flirtation. Instead, the chill in it sent icicles down his spine. His Highland lilt was strong, deliberately so, marking the difference to her accent. "Auntie Meg told me about you when she received your father's letter. Katrina, the fallen angel from the city." He snorted and let his gaze rake at well over her curves. Heat shot into her cheeks, setting her skin on fire. What gave him the right? "I'm sorry, but you're misinformed." She crossed her arms under her breasts. The move did not escape his attention. He raised a fair eyebrow as his gaze focused on her décolleté. Quickly she lowered her arms again, entwining her fingers. "Don't you worry, Miss Mackenzie," he laughed, though the humour never reached his eyes. "There won't be any temptation for you out here. Highlanders learned a long time ago not to mess with lowland ladies." He abruptly turned to the fire, grabbed a poker and stoked the flames with fierce thrusts. The hissing of embers filled the room, and the rich scent of peat drifted to where she stood. "Who are you?" Yes, indeed, who is Rory? Well, in order to find out who Rory is, and what Katrina's doing, and planned rebellions, smuggled guns, and whatever else is in there, abductions, bad buddies. You'll have to buy the book. It's available in Kindle and ebook formats on Amazon, and it's free to read on Kindle Unlimited. So if you're signed up to read a certain number of books a day for a certain amount, you should be able to get it for free. I hope you've enjoyed this excerpt, and I hope to see you soon at one of my next videos with my next readings. Take care. Be safe. Thank you. Bye.